Brat is not and should not be anybody's album of the year, and it's going to clean up. Everybody's going to say it because it's an easy and obvious choice. However, it's going to lack any real-world relevance or resonance to normal people, right? The people that like it are very online, they're very connected to music, and often in very LGBT-adjacent spaces, right? However, if you look at the number of streams that album got, minor. Absolutely minor. If you look at her reception on Saturday Night Live, nobody watched it. Yeah, she doesn't actually have, Charli XCX does not have that many fans. She's just got very motivated fans. She's got very loud fans, and that is creating an outsized bubble where we all think it's massive. It's actually not.
I'll be honest with you. I never thought Brat was as big as it seems to be.
Yeah.
See, I think your argument there is skewed in a way of the album shouldn't be album of the year because it's been overinflated by the marketing campaign around it. And that is true. The marketing campaign has overinflated it, but that doesn't stop it from being a fantastic album.
It is a great album. It is a great album. I will not deny that it is a great album. Do I think it deserves to be as big as it is? No. Do I think that maybe it's a little bit overhyped? Definitely.
To be fair, and I know that this was my question, I really liked the album. I thought it was a very good hyperpop album. I thought there were a number of good tracks, interesting sound signature, and if you're in that kind of space, I think it's going to really work for you. However, my point is simply, it's not going to have a massive impact on most people. And I can prove that by the fact that when I looked the other day, not a single track from that album had over 250 million streams. Mm-hmm. Right, which means that on the global streams for this year, not a single one of those tracks is going to be in the top 50. Mm-hmm. How can we all collectively? Because I've seen a number of early lists coming out. Everybody's going, it's album of the year. Nobody's actually listening to it.
Do you know what really surprised me was when I was comparing monthly listeners? So when we were trying to figure out lineups, I went through Chapel Roan, Charli XCX, Sabrina Carpenter.
No, let me interrupt. Why are you all talking about numbers of streams and monthly listeners for album of the year? Album of the year is not the most.
I'm not.
It's not the most. No, but album of the year does not mean the most listened to album. Otherwise, it'd just be Taylor Swift every year for the last 5 years.
I'm not arguing the album of the year aspect. I'm arguing it doesn't deserve the credence that it's getting.
Fair, and I'm using.
Why? Because of the number of streams, not because of the quality of music.
No, because the size and the impact that it's had. I don't think it was good enough to have that kind of impact. If people want it as album of the year, I'm not going to fault that. I get it. It's a good album, like I've said. But should it be as big as it is?
Oh, I'm going to catch you out here. You said earlier, if a global artist has got billions of streams, they can't be bad. That's what you said earlier, right?
Well, I said that I agree, that not everything they do can be bad.
Therefore, surely if we're not getting any streams on something, it cannot be that impactful.
Well, no, it's not about the impact. It's about the quality of the music, and it's still... You're comparing it to other world-renowned artists. Charli was nowhere near that before this. Let's put that straight. She was small,
She had that Icona Pop song that drove my car into a bridge.
That's a great song.
But since then... Nothing. For 10 years, so nobody knew anything from her.
You're not really going to expect it to be getting hundreds of millions of streams. And the point of it being album of the year has nothing to do with the number of streams.
I completely disagree.
All right, so let me ask you a question then. What is album? If it's not Brat, if you're saying there's no chance that it should be, we're all hyping it up. What should be? What is a better album?
No. I didn't come on here to give you what my album of the year is. I don't need to justify what my album of the year is. Yeah, because I could say whatever I wanted, and then I could argue, well, it's not about how many streams it got; it's about how good it was. Yeah, so I could say for me, I really like the Wonder Horse album. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic album. In fact, I'd probably say for me, Never Ender was probably my album of the year. I don't even think that Brat is the best music that Charli XCX has ever put out.
Oh no, come on.
No, I'm not necessarily saying it's an album.
Yeah.
But none of the... You said it earlier, Tim, that track with Icona Pop, that is better than any single that's on Brat.
But that was a feature from Charli XCX. But also, you got like 360. You can't deny. You got bops.
It was
like
good.
That. 365 as well. Lots of numbers.
I enjoyed the album.
I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is in the genre in which it's in, that kind of hyper pop lane, there has never been an album that's done as well as this, historically. This is the biggest one. It's taken Charli's career to a new level where she's headlining Parklife and she'll probably headline Reading and Leeds at some point in the next few years. I know that the impact that it's had has been amplified by a very successful marketing campaign, but we look at that with a lot of artists, let's say Romance, Fontaine's DC, that's changed their careers, not only because of how good the album is, but also because of the hype and the new image they've built and the fashion person and everything around it is important. And And that is part of what builds into it being the most impactful and best album of this year.
Right. But I think Tim, you said it earlier, right? You were looking at things like Sabrina Carpenter. When I was doing the same thing, because I was thinking about this, I was looking at Chappell Roan, and I was going, kind of a similar audience blew up this year. Yeah, Chappell Roan songs are getting 1 billion streams. Yeah, but 4 times as many streams.
But the songs, critically, and at least to me personally, I don't know. I think it'll probably be the same for both of you. Aren't as good. Just because they're more manufactured for radio or suit radio more doesn't mean that it makes it a better song or especially a better album.
0 tracks from Brat made it onto my playlist. I mean, I listened to the album maybe half a dozen times, start to finish.
Well, yeah, but your point effectively then is an album that I wasn't really a fan of shouldn't be album of the year.
No. I'm saying album of the year has to have impact resonant across both the industry and normal people.
I didn't even realise this was about album of the year. I thought we were just saying Brat shouldn't be as big as it is.
But
album of the year, I don't give a shit.
On your metrics, Tortured Poets Department should be album of the year.
No.
It was number 1 for 14 weeks.
No. Hear me out. I'm saying it's a composite of how musically interesting is it, how critically interesting is it? So, how much is it going to impact other bands? We just talked about 1985. Huge impact. So I would give, if some of their albums were album of the year, I'd say okay, because you can see a clear musical legacy from those albums to other things have influenced. I don't think this album is going to have a huge amount of mainstream influence. And the third thing is, I think that album of the year has to be something that if you talk to somebody on the street, they might have heard it. And I don't think most normal people would listen to Brat.
I strongly disagree with that. A lot of albums I would have as contenders for album of the year, I doubt even either of you have heard.
But is that your album of the year or what you think the full album of the year is? Like, not your opinion, but what you think.
What I would class as the album of the year, because I think album of the year is a subjective opinion.